Next on Sprague Woodturning, we're going to take this hideous looking piece of maple and turn it into the 35,000 subscriber giveaway bowl. It ain't pretty now, but it will be when we're done with it. That's next. Welcome to this week's video, everyone. So I was just pointing out that with the gouge, it leaves behind the center mark. So when you're trying to mount these pieces between centers, there should be a mark left there when you're doing twice turn bowls like I do. And then I'm just using a center finder here, just marking around all the outside of it because the tenon's oblonged, and pick the center basically out of all the cross sections where they meet. Then just use a Phillips screwdriver to mark where the areas are. Here we are mounted between centers. Like I said, these tendons go oval or oblong. So if you're going to use a chuck, you really got to true them up. And here we are, we're mounted in the chuck. This is real speed, just to give you an idea of, I realize that I speed up a lot of these videos and a lot of people don't get the true sense of how fast I'm going, but that's regular speed right there. And this is sped up to 1,000%. And that is typically what I run a lot of the footage at when I'm on the lathe here. And I've got a short clip coming up here right after this that shows, again, the video at normal speed and some of the sounds that go with it. Just going to finish the outside here with a little push cut. Now we move to the rim. This was a relatively solid piece, even though it had some cracks in it. There was a big bark inclusion there, and the possibility certainly was there that this could fly apart. So, you got to be kind of ready for it. And when I turn these pieces, even though I was relatively confident that it wasn't going to fly apart, I typically stay out of the throw of the lathe. So that way, if you get a devastating catch, that you're at least not going to be hit with any wood shrapnel, or anyway, hopefully you're not going to be. With all that said, I've mounted pieces on the lathe that I thought were good and solid, and they were the ones that flew apart. So it's just something that you always got to be ready for and expect. Typhoon bits. I buy mine at Lee Valley. There is a link in the description if you're curious. And these are just little pick tools. They're actually made by Snap-on from my former mechanic's life. And I just get in there and clean out all these little bark areas. There was a little bug area in one area. And it's great for picking out bark. And then, I always make sure that blow things out really good with the air hose just to get rid of anything that may be floating in the resin, because we don't like that. And I've got the smaller Typhoon bit mounted in the Dremel tool there, and it does a really good job punching. There's another bark inclusion there, and you can see this has got some dry rot in it. It's got more issues than a TV guide, that's for sure. So that's why I selected this piece. I know that a lot of people will have these pieces in their inventory, and this is certainly a way that you can fix it. Here on the end grain, we're going to cut out this area because I want to do a branch inlay. So I'm just using my little jigsaw to get that done. And can't really see all that great there, so I move the camera. But once you make that cut, you can't do a retake on it. Here's the biggest Typhoon mounted in my drill. It's actually very aggressive. I only buy the coarse ones. I don't buy the fine ones. I don't see the point. And it will remove a lot of material very quickly. And you got to be really careful with it because it tends to want to skate away on you sometimes. But as long as you got a good firm grip on it, it should work for you pretty good. So here I'm showing all the areas where the resin's going to be required. This thing certainly had a lot of issues, there's no doubt about it. And decided to use stabilized cherry branches this week just for some contrast. I could have used maple, but I thought the cherry would be a good fit for it as well. Anyway, I just cut them to length on the bandsaw, a little oversized like I always do. And, I usually cut a variety of these things and try and piece them in best I can. Um, of course, the thin CA glue from Starbond is what I use to hold them in place. You'll see here in a minute, I'll take it back over the lathe and grind the branches down so it's almost to the surface of the wood. But, I usually give the branches a fair bit of CA glue just in an effort to hold them in place. And of course, use the accelerator. Cuts sanding disc. Again, this is a very aggressive disc, so you got to be really careful you don't grind into the outside of the bowl. So I want these branches to be just proud of the surface. Usually I don't do this on the inside, but I wanted to this week. I want to give it a try again. As you can see, I knocked one of the branches out there. So, if you want to do some of these branch inlays and using these techniques, you're going to be up against this quite a bit. I lose probably a few of these branches. The CA glue is just there to hold them in place until we can get the resin poured. And the last little thing is to take any sharp edges off with some 80 grit. So these are the kitchen bags that I'm using in both official languages. And I use two on the outside and two on the inside. It's just more flexible than the 6 mil poly. Not as tough, that's for sure. You'll see I'll put two in the middle as well. And I'm using rice again this week as the to give it some weight and to make sure that if there is a leak, I can turn it away. And then the last thing, just set a weight on it just to hold things in place, and everything looked good. I'm going to use a deep cast again this week. Um, 800 milliliters, I think, is what it went. Wasn't exactly sure what we're going to go with, and I decided the pearl wine red was a good fit for this bowl, so that's why I selected that. And that's very close to that burgundy color that I was using, or that I made in one of the previous videos, which I'm going to redo again. But this is probably one of the closest pigments to it. Decided to do the pour inside the pressure pot because it was just too hard to move in and out afterwards. The manufacturer recommends pressurizing these pressure pots to a maximum of 60 psi, so that's what I usually pressurize them at. All right, so it's been a couple of days. Hoping to see some resin on the top of this when I open it. Oh no. Well, now. All right, let's get this out of here and see what we're going to do. I think the good news here is that all of these voids, there's no resin in them at all. So I'm just going to put some dams in here and mix some more resin, and I think that we're going to be fine. Don't have to worry about witness lines or anything like that. So what went wrong here was I didn't have anything supporting the bottom of that bowl like marbles or rice. So when it got pressurized, it pushed all the resin down into the foot area. I thought I could get away with it. I pulled the plastic tight on the outside, but should have known better, I guess. 60 psi will overcome that. This time we're going with the Pro Series because now I'm stressed for time. So, and the Pro Series is a good candidate here because it's not a real thick pour anyway. Again, with the Pearl Wine Red, I really like to use the clear plastic like you see in the bowl here. You can see if there's any issues, if you've got any air trapped in these pockets. So, I don't go out and buy these clear plastic sheets. I just take them out of our recycling. Um, anyway, I recommend using them. That way you can get ahead of anything any issues that you might experience. So what I'm pointing out there is the center mark from the drive center, and I'm just going to drill a small little hole in, maybe an eighth of an inch or so. And once I get that done, clean the base off. It's important that if you are going to use a glue block, that you try and stick it to wood as opposed to resin. And there you can see how it's kind of rocking back and forth, so the base isn't perfectly flat. So I just keep going at it until I get it perfectly flat. Um, or concave, I should say, slightly. So this is the waste block I'm going to use, and as you can see, there's a little nub there, and that little nub will fit into the base of the bowl. That way, when you dip it in the hot melt glue here, it should line up perfectly, and your bowl should be relatively um, on center and not wobbling all over the place. Got to be really careful. I had to push down pretty hard on that to get that little nub to go into the hole, and if you happen to get that hot melt glue on your hands, well, based on experience, I can tell you that's probably going to burn you. So there's a spot that I missed. I must have covered it with some tape, so I wasn't overly pleased with myself with that. So here we're going to start with the Hercules, and it does the bulk of getting rid of all this resin that had accumulated at the base of the bowl. There was some cracks in the base of the bowl, so it certainly did a good job filling those in. But I've done enough of these now that I should have known not to do that casting like that, and that there was a good chance that resin was going to get pushed to the very base. So I won't do it again. The only issue that I was really up against was the bucket basically fit the casting perfectly, and I didn't have a lot of room at the very top of the bucket, so for resin to sit. So that's why if I had to put some marbles down in there, it probably would have affected the height of that. And then I would have had a hard time getting a little resin reservoir at the top. So, next time I'll do better. And I will mention that there are discount codes in the description down below if you need any stuff from Designer Epoxy, Hunter Tool Systems, Starbond Adhesives, or sandpaper.ca. The discount codes are in the description, along with there's a lot of Amazon associate links there too, and those are basically products that I've used on the channel. And so if you're curious as to where you can get some of this stuff, then just check out the description and all the links are there. And I do receive a very small commission each time that people use those links. So for those of you who have, thank you so much. I appreciate it. In that previous clip, there was some areas where the resin wasn't or was vacant. And I'm assuming that's just got to do with the fact that, there's some air pockets in there, and I did my best to kind of push on those little areas with the plastic, and you could see bubbles coming out of there. But you know, when you've got that many to do, you're probably going to miss some, or some aren't going to go the way you want them to. So anyway, we'll have to address that here coming up. But overall, we've got a solid casting. That's the main part. All right, so I'm just getting rid of any of this excess resin and trying to get this down to the finished wall thickness that we want. I think this one was a little larger than a half inch in thickness. But like I said on my last video, that I like bowls with some mass, so that's kind of why I make these turnings the way I do. The other thing too is with them branches being in there, if somebody were to grab that bowl by the branch inlay and pick it up, if it's if it's thin, there's a chance that that's going to bust out of there. And I'm just using the Osprey to just do final little passes to clean things up before we do yet another resin pour. And there's a very clean surface. There's no complaints there at all. So I did an error here when I glued these little clear plastic areas on. I didn't leave a reservoir, so I had a real hard time getting the epoxy down inside to fill those voids. This is the 1 to 2 hour epoxy from Designer Epoxy. I keep it above the electric heater in my clean room, and the reason for that is because it's actually quite thick. Now the only problem with that is since both A and B have heat in them, then they tend to cure faster. So that's something you got to watch for. Ordinarily, you'd have an open time of 15 minutes to work with this. Since I've already got some heat in them, you're looking at maybe 5 minutes. So anyway, I pulled off those plastic pieces and filled the voids with with the epoxy, and as you can see here, this hardened up on me. Probably at about the 10-minute mark, couldn't use it. So from here on, I switched to the 5/8 bowl gouge from David Ellsworth. There really wasn't a lot of resin in this piece, so the bowl gouge is a good choice for this. And as you can see, I'm taking some pretty long shear cuts here just to really improve the surface. Now, I had to put a lot of CA glue in this piece, and like I said earlier, if the original casting had to work the way that I wanted it to go, it would have filled in all of these areas. Regardless, thanks to Starbond for being there because it certainly allowed me to carry on with this project. So this week's video wouldn't be late. If you're curious, I sharpened the gouge twice here, and it's important to remove any of the CA glue that's on the surface of the bowl because it will do a pretty darn good job of clogging up the sandpaper. So that's why, I typically don't leave it on there unless it's something that I'm filling in right at the very end. And you've got things sanded to say 320. Well, it doesn't make any sense to go back with the gouge. And usually they're not very big areas anyway. All right, so there I'm just showing that I've got a freshly sharpened gouge and just taking my last final pass before sanding. Back again with 3.5 inch discs from sandpaper.ca, the dimple discs, and I'm sanding from 60 to 800. And you'll see I'll take maybe 3 or 4 passes with the 60 grit. Notice there's a little area in kind of like the base of the bowl, but other than that, the gouge work was pretty good. And as you can see, it leaves a pretty good surface for sanding starting at 60 grit, which is the most important grit when sanding. All right, so this is the first time we're ever using Waterlox, and it is food safe when it's fully cured. I have it in writing from the company. There's nothing on the can that says it, but apparently they certify that all of their products, when fully cured, food safe. It's a very dark finish. It's a tung oil base, and to be perfectly honest with you, it kind of smells like those urinal pucks. Anyway, that is definitely what what it smells like. I'm not gonna lie to you. Anyway, I've heard a lot of good things about this finish. So, like I said, with the Easy Do, I don't care if it smells like an old barn as long as it works. Let's check it out. Well, there you go. Really haven't looked at the resin very much on this. The Don't worry, the smell will go will go away. No, seriously though, I've heard that Waterlox is actually supposed to be a really, really good finish. I will give you a medium to slightly higher than medium gloss. Just depends on how many coats. All right, well, tomorrow we will treat this the same way as we do the rest of the finishes. I didn't buff, and of course, this is so much wood here that I didn't want to raise a grain in it. So, because I'd have to clean with denatured alcohol, and I didn't really see the need for it. Too bad I can't really get that. It's really dark. I realize that looking at the camera there is very dark, but it's actually lighter than that. It's actually very pretty. All right, see you guys tomorrow. Decided to use the 4.0 steel wool on this project between coats. This is typically what I would do with the solid bowl finish on normal bowls, which I'll call this because there's not a huge amount of resin in it. All right, it is the second coat of Waterlox. And we'll see if we can get away with using 2 coats. I'm assuming it's like most. You're gonna have to probably give it 3. Well, I'll be honest with you. This stuff covers very nicely, and it is the leading contender to replace solid bowl finish. For sure. It lays down flat. There's no streaks. Covers well. I mean, I might be able to, you know, by the looks of it, this looks like it's going to be done in 2 coats. I'll put 3 on it just to show what it's going to look like with 3 coats, but I mean, it is really covered well. Very cool. A lot of busyness going on in this bowl. All right, I'll do the third coat the same way, so I'll bring you back on doing foot. Till then, have a good day. Just getting ready to part the piece off the lathe. I'll be using a 3/16 inch parting tool from Crown. If you watch my right hand, you'll see it wiggling. So as I move the parting tool in, I give it a little bit of space by doing that and just finish it off with a handsaw. And of course, as always, I like to use my vacuum chuck when doing the bottoms of these bowls. All right, so let's pick the winner of the 35,000 subscriber giveaway bowl. All right, so before we pick a name, I thought that I would showcase some of the bowls that I've kept. This bowl is actually a maple bowl that was featured in House and Home magazine for the One of a Kind show. Yeah, one thing we've made on the channel as well. This one I've never shown. This is actually poplar crotch and spalted birch branches in brown soapstone, and it has some of the most amazing flame figure, crotch figure I've ever seen. That's why we kept that one. And then of course, this is I think the second one that I made, maple burrow pieces. This has been a very popular bowl, and anyway, that's in our personal collection. All right, so here are the 18 names that have been selected by the random comment picker. So if you see your name here, you've got a chance to win. Let's pick a name. All right, so this is the bowl we use. Here's all the names. Mix them up, good. Make sure they all stay in there, of course. Me and family. Oddly enough, I know who this person is. He comments on every video that I do, and it was the 10-gallon pressure pot video that this one goes against. So congratulations. I won't see his name on here, but me and family, you're the winner of the 35,000 subscriber giveaway bowl. Congratulations. All right, well, let's have a last little talk about this bowl. I'm just trying to keep the lights down here so that we can get a good look at it. Cherry branches and maple. That resin is absolutely fantastic. Love it. It's so shiny. It is so shiny. The inside. And I apologize for the lights if I don't have them. It's just too dark. Little knot area. And try and put it like that. A bowl with a lot of issues that's been rescued, and it is now an absolutely beautiful piece. The Waterlox. I'll be honest with you that trying to find a replacement for salad bowl finish by General Finishes has been very trying. It's been almost like the quest for fire. But this Waterlox, I think, is it. I mean, really, do you need any more shine than that? It does say on the can that the shine will diminish a little bit, and that's fine because this is really, really glossy right now. I think it's actually even more glossier than the General Finishes stuff. It covers well and it lays flat. One little spot I thought I'd point out in there is this area with all this really weird wonky grain, compression grain for some reason. Really neat. Anyway, congratulations to Smee and family. And thanks to everybody that's commented on the videos. So the names were selected from a comment picker in each video since we did the last draw. And, you know, it really helps out the channel if you do comment, and you might just win yourself a bowl as well. So that's it. I'm not exactly sure what we're going to do next week. Haven't even thought about it. But we're starting to run out of time for that too, just like always. Anyway, don't forget about our sponsors down below. Till next week, take care, stay safe. Don't forget that bell. We'll see you next time.